Right now, there's a country in West Africa making a policy decision today that would boost their investment climate ranking by up to 15 positions. At the same time, there's another country making another policy decision right now that is going to cost them millions of dollars in foreign direct investment, in quotes FDI. What is the difference? The latter country relies on benchmark data, regional benchmarking data to make these kind of policy decisions to benefit its citizens. The other country is relying on fragmented, outdated data sitting in silos in government departments that has gathered dust. So let me ask you this question. Which country do you think yours is? In Africa, it's very common. It's a very common thing that very often government policymakers and leaders and decision makers in general do not have the luxury of reliable quality data to make decisions, especially decisions that impact their citizens. Because in most cases, that data is not available. So there was a survey conducted by the Mo Ibrahim Foundation that found out that African governance, amongst those who were surveyed were African governance and policy experts. At the end of the survey, they discovered that 94% of them said that lack of reliable data impacts their work. They're not able to do their work very effectively because of this lack of data. And that is what this content is going to be about, particularly not just highlighting the lack of data or lack of comparative data, because the glue that stitches everything together is the ability for one country to find out the performance of their neighboring countries so that they are not left behind, or to find out the performance of a country within Africa that is doing very, very well in an area that they lack, so that they can understudy or find out what they are doing different, so that they can, quote unquote, copy them, right? Copying the good practices is good. There's no need reinventing the wheel. So that's what this content is all going to be about, and particularly to find out how, or the solution to go around this challenge, particularly for decision makers within governments or government organizations or organizations that impacts people within countries. So without much ado, I just want to chip in this. So if you are doing business in Africa, possibly a multinational or an investor wanting to do business in Africa, one of the key things, that one of the Achilles heels of doing business in Africa, typically for investors coming in, or even for business people wanting to reach out or expand into other markets, is the lack of cultural intelligence. That has been the silent killer for most companies that want to enter or do enter into the African market. They make silly cultural mistakes that they have no business doing because they didn't know. They step on the wrong foot. They do things the wrong way culturally. But how do you know that? That's why we put together a report called the African Advantage. It's a report that shows the 5 regional clusters when it comes to culture and identity, how they do their things. They do their things very, very similarly. So if you are a business organization and you want to know about all the cultural nuances that pertains to these 5 big blocks in Africa, this report, you can download it for free. You can scan the QR code on this page, or you can head into the description section of this video and use the link there to get yourself this report. It will do you great. So let's jump right back into our content. All right. So lack of adequate data we know lack of adequate data, particularly in Africa, puts limitation on what we call policy analysis, or people who come up with policies, rules, regulations within their countries, right? Who represent government. It limits their ability to do their work very well. This means that governments risk crafting policies that may not, in the long run, be beneficial to its citizens. And they are doing it blindly because it's difficult to get data out of Africa. particularly benchmark data. And when you say benchmark data, it means comparative data. Data that compares. So let's say I pick Ghana and Nigeria. They are two nations within West Africa. But I can bet you most government officials within these two countries are not able to benchmark each other very well because there is not the availability. Until now, there's not the availability of standardized data, standardized comparable data where you are comparing really apples to apples so that you can pick ideas from each other to improve together. That is not available until now. So the solution is very simple. To go around this whole challenge, and there's a tool called AfricaInsights.ai that blows this thing out of the water. And we're just going to show you how this is done. So if you're a policymaker or you work with government or for government or you know policymakers, I want you to watch this video very, very, very closely to show you how, even with fragmented data, AfricaInsights.ai, which is an AI platform specifically designed for Africa, for market analysis and investment analysis. So that's purely what it is, and it's mind-blowing. So I'm going to share my screen to show you. I'm just going to use Ghana and Nigeria. Let's use them because they are always regional rivals. Let's use that to now, assuming you're a policymaker, how you're going to be able to benchmark or compare the performance of your country to another country. So let me just share my screen for a minute and then we jump along. So right now I've logged into my AfricaInsights.ai dashboard. And in all disclosure, this is a tool that I'm a part of. We designed it from scratch purposely for the continent of Africa. In full disclaimer, but it's not even about that. For me, it's about the solution that it brings. So let's take a look at it. We're just going to go through one or two scenarios to just show you the power of this in terms of helping policymakers. So we're going to go to the economic indicators overview, right? Sometimes it takes a little bit while to load because it's running a lot of data from the background. So sometimes just bear with it to load. So from the economic indicators overview standpoint, these are key economic indicators that can be compared for all 54 African countries. And the first one, so there are 5 of them. That is monitoring GDP growth rate, inflation rate, currency stability of a country, the country's fiscal policy, and then their population levels. So let's say I want to compare myself. So let me just load this. Okay, so I've finished loading it. So from a glance, I can see if I wanted to compare Ghana with Nigeria, right? Okay. So Ghana is right here. So I put this, the moment I put the mouse on it, it's showing Ghana's GDP growth rate at 5.7% and Nigeria at 3.4%, right? I can also compare that with any country at all because they're all here. But it's not only that. That information also is held in a table below here. And the beautiful part is that it also gives you the reference date. So for Ghana, the reference date was 2024. And for Nigeria, let's see, Nigeria is ranked by, Nigeria is a 2025 projection, right? And it has all the sources and citations and everything on the far right side or on the 4th column. So that is how easy it is. Within 5, if before the AfricaInsights.ai to do what I just did and to show you an overview, quick overview of every country like that, it probably would have taken days to weeks with a team of analysts to be able to pull this off. But how long did this take? A minute or a minute and a half. We're able to visually see comparative information about each African country, their GDP. In the same way, let's go to the inflation rate. We're just going to go through this quickly. Okay, so we do the same thing for inflation rate. And again, just going to compare Ghana and Nigeria again, assuming that was my case study, right? So I just zoomed in a bit. So in the same vein, is here 21.2% for Ghana. Let's look at Nigeria. It's 24.2% in Nigeria. That's simple. If I wanted to compare with different countries, I could do that at a glance. Very, very simple. And again, that same information can be downloaded here. It can be downloaded and it has the reference date as well, and then as well as the sources and their citations, making research and comparison very, very easily. So we're just going to quickly go through the other three, which is the currency stability overview. Okay, so again, the map for the currency stability has loaded. So let's take a look at it again. So if I have zoomed in again, I see that Ghana is strong. Ghana's currency as of now is very strong. And then Nigeria is moderate. So you can take a look at that in terms of a map view, or you can take a look at it in this kind of a card kind of view, where it categorizes the strong currencies, the moderate currencies, and then the weaker currencies in three separate buckets that you can beautifully see in a visual format. Then the next is going to be the fiscal policy. So let's look at fiscal policy. All these are showing that it's so easy to pick these things. It would have taken weeks and months in some cases to be able to generate this kind of report. So the fiscal policy, again, fiscal policy is given in a map form. Let me zoom in. Okay, so after zooming in, just worth noting that fiscal policies are grouped into three buckets. That is expansionary countries that are expanding, countries in terms of fiscal policy. That means they are spending money. They are growing their economies by spending, either by borrowing to fund infrastructure projects or borrowing to fund political activities during an election year or whatever it is. Then the yellow ones are countries that are kind of balanced or neutral. Then the red are countries that are contracting, they are tightening their belt, they are probably paying off their debt and increasing taxes to be able to pay off their debt, or whatever it is that contractionary mean. So again, you look at Ghana and Nigeria, both countries are in some kind of a contractionary mode, right? And then you can find a detailed overview here by country. So it's arranged beautifully and nicely here that you can find each country's fiscal policy is beautifully stated here, together with a tag that shows whether they are contracting or they are expanding or they are staying neutral. All right, so there it is for the fiscal policy visual. Okay, so let's look at the next one, or the last one, for the economic indicators overview, which is population size. Okay, so the population visual has been launched. So you could see this is very self-explanatory, easily comparable. You could see that the bigger and darker the bubble is, the larger the population size. So as you can see, it's showing that Nigeria is roughly about 237 million and change in terms of population size, whereas Ghana is about 35 million in terms of population size. And you can see that for every country across the continent. How powerful is that? We've compared 4 key metrics. And how long did it take? Less than 5 minutes. Less than 5 minutes. So the next one that I want us to look at is the investment climate analysis. This is a key metric that investors use to determine whether to enter a country or not. So investment climate analysis is very key. So let's look at, so basically how it works is that you just select a country and then you run the report. And it shows you the detailed investment climate analysis report for that country. Then the second tab here shows multi-country comparison. So as we were talking about Ghana and Nigeria, right? So I can I pull in Ghana, then I pull in Nigeria, right? I pull in Nigeria. Okay, so I pull in Nigeria here. So I'm going to compare both countries. So as I hit the compare button, it runs the report and shows me the report side by side. So I can compare this report. So the first one, when it comes to investment climate comparison, is the ease of doing business metrics. So it tells you the this is Ghana, ease of doing business. So it tells you the business registration process in Ghana here, and how that compares with the business registration process in Nigeria. It also tells you about the average time it takes to start a business in Ghana versus the average time it takes to start a business in Nigeria, right? So it says historically, starting a business in Ghana has taken around 14 days, though this can vary depending on the type of business and efficiency of the registration process. Whereas in Nigeria, it says that historically, starting a business in Nigeria has been slow due to bureaucratic hurdles. However, recent reforms aim to reduce this time frame. Though specific data on the current average time is not readily available. So Nigeria, in terms of business registration, is a little bit in the dark ages compared to Ghana, just on this metric alone, right? So then regulatory requirements, compare regulatory requirements. All these are under the ease of doing business metric. Then we jump onto the next metric, which is the foreign investment regulations. So that has to do with investment restrictions, ownership limitations, protected sectors, and investment incentives. So you're comparing them side by side. This means information is standardized across countries, therefore you can compare them, right? Then the next big subsection is tax incentives and tax structures. So it's telling you right here that Ghana's tax system includes various incentives to encourage investment. And then it talks about corporate tax, the corporation tax rate. The standard corporate tax rate is 25% in Ghana, though it can be lower for certain industries like manufacturing. So let's look at that of Nigeria. It says that there's a standard corporation tax rate in Nigeria is 30%, though it can vary depending on type of business and sector-specific incentives, right? Investment tax credits, it tells you about special economic zones right here. Then double taxation treaties, all under the tax incentives and structures section. Then the next section, this report is dealing about investment climate analysis. This is information that investors need by country to make a go or no-go decision per country. So then the next one is repatriation policies. That is, after you've made your money, how easy or difficult it is to be able to repatriate your money back to your home base, right? So Ghana and Nigeria, they are side by side. That's talking about profit repatriation rules, capital repatriation limits between Ghana and Nigeria, talking about foreign exchange controls, and then banking requirements, all side by side by country that you can see. So then the beautiful thing is that you can just download this report and give it to superiors or decision makers to be able to make their own judgment or make their own decisions, right? So that is the investment climate report. We'll look at possibly two others, and this is just giving you an overview of what can be done in terms of comparative analysis or benchmarking the performance of one country versus another. So let's look at business factors analysis. So business factors analysis basically analyzes business environment across different, different factors. So basically it's comparing business environment. So if I want to do business in Ghana versus I want to do business in Nigeria, what are the key differences, right? So if I'm a policy maker, what are the key drivers? Particularly if, let's say, I checked and let's say Ghana or Nigeria is doing very well as shown by the economic growth and the key economic metrics. And I want to really drill down to see how the business environment in the other country that I need to benchmark is. So, right, once again, so this is the report for Ghana and Nigeria in terms of business environment, right? So, and you look at it, I'm going to read the overview. So, Ghana, it says that the current regulatory environment in Ghana is undergoing significant reforms aimed at improving business climate. The government has initiated the Business Regulatory Reform Program to simplify regulations and enhance the business ecosystem. Additionally, Ghana faces external challenges such as the imposition of tariffs by countries like the USA, which can impact trade. Let's look at Nigeria. The current regulatory environment in Nigeria is evolving with significant developments aimed at enhancing business operations. In 2024, the country faced challenges such as monetary policy tightening and regulatory shifts. But it also saw improvements in sectors like telecommunications and anti-money laundering frameworks. As of 2025, Nigeria continues to strengthen its regulatory landscape, particularly in combating financial crimes and streamlining business approvals. Right? Then it goes on to talk about this about regulatory comparison. So there are different sections. So this is regulatory environment comparison, right? And so each section will talk about an overview, strengths, challenges, and then it moves on to the next one. So this one talks about the strengths, the regulatory reforms, then the strengths, and then the challenges. So as far as regulatory reforms are concerned, in Ghana, some of the key strengths are the government is actively implementing the Business Regulatory Reform Program to address systemic challenges and streamline business regulations. Right? In Nigeria, the strength is that the strength here. They are doing enhanced anti-money laundering framework. Nigeria has strengthened its legal and regulatory framework for tackling financial crimes, earning praise from the Financial Action Task Force for its progress in combating money laundering and terrorism financing. So you can see each one is side by side. Then it goes on to the next section for the business environment, which is infrastructure development comparison. So you can compare the two of them in terms of infrastructure development overview, their strengths, their challenges, and what have you. Then you go to the next, which is access to finance comparison. So it compares the two, particularly access to finance for SMEs. So this is very rich information. This is very rich comparative information for Africa. Would help policymakers to make key decisions. And it goes on and on. There are several sections in this report. And I just wanted to show you so that you flow with me, right? So now let's look at one other thing that is very, very vital. Regulatory compliance. How countries compare when it comes to regulations. This is massive. So, because regulatory compliance could be the decider, or could be the key that makes an investor decide whether to invest in a country or not. If the regulatory environment is too tough, too tight, typically investors want to stay away. At the same time, too, the country needs to put in laws that will make sure that they are not taken advantage of by foreign companies or organizations, or even sometimes other foreign countries, right? So this is where it comes in. So there's a comparative tool that is going to be coming in our next update that's going to show side by side. But let's say you are Nigeria and you want to compare, let's say, energy. So this report works by country and sector, because that's how regulatory compliance are done. It's by sector and by country. So you generate this Nigeria energy. So in the energy industry in Nigeria, you run this report, and then you're able to see that this report has an overview where it tells you about the key regulatory bodies and then the primary legislation when it comes to that sector. So in Nigeria, it tells you that if you want to get into their energy industry, you're going to deal with Nigeria Electric Regulatory Commission that mandates regulates their mandate is they regulate generation, transmission, and distribution of electricity, sets tariffs, monitors market performance, and enforces compliance, right? And this is their website, nerc.gov.ng. If you are going to go into the petroleum resources line, the agency you are going to be dealing with is Ministry of Petroleum Resources and its agencies, right? And then if you're going to go the nuclear route, you're going to deal with the Nigerian Nuclear Authority Agency. Their mandate is to regulate nuclear safety, security, and safeguards in the application, including energy generation, right? And then there are other sector-specific bodies emerging under recent reforms. And the example, specialized units within the PIA framework. So then it goes on to show you the primary legislation that drives these regulatory bodies, right? So in the petroleum industry, they have the PIA Act, Petroleum Industry Act 2021. They have the Electric Power Sector Reform Act, EPSRA. And then the Nigerian Nuclear Regulatory Authority Act. And then also talks about recent regulatory changes and dates, key dates. Then investment and tax considerations. So if you are going to go in there, so assuming I'm in Ghana and I want to look at what Nigeria's regulatory environment is in terms of energy, this is it. It makes it so easy to be able to find this information without jumping around months and weeks and sometimes even years to try to piece together this content, because it's difficult to even find that out. So to do that, investment and tax regulations, these are like foreign investment regulations, includes ownership restrictions, investment protection, profit repatriation, and special economic zones in respect of the energy sector. Then he also comes to talk about the tax compliance issues. And all these reports can be downloaded here. Then the next one is the operations regulations in Nigeria. That's labor and employment regulations as pertains to the energy sector, local content requirements, and once again, you can export that. Then it comes to the big one, which is compliance and risk. That's the environmental compliance, impact assessment, sustainability reporting requirements, emissions and waste regulations, and industry-specific requirements. Anti-corruption compliance here, including penalties and consequences for non-compliance, and many others. And if you want to see the full comprehensive report, that's like a massive 17-page report. It's here for each country. So if I wanted to put the same report for Ghana, I just need to go in and then change that for Ghana. And then I change it, I run it. Yes, I run the same report, and then this is Ghana. Where in Ghana, you see that in Ghana, the rules are different, the agencies are different, the legislation is different. Right? So in Ghana is the Energy Commission of Ghana, and then Public Regulations Commission, the Petroleum Commission of Ghana, so on all that. And then these are the primary legislation, foreign investment regulations, and what have you. So there's a detailed report. There's the full report. But if you want to see it section by section, it shows you here. The same. So this is how easy it is to compare country by country. Then I'm going to show you the last report. The last tool, which is the Market Insight Analysis Report. This has to do with sector-based analysis. So if I want to check the performance of my country versus another country, I could do that individually. I can pull the country, and then I can pull, let's say, Angola, and I pull energy, and then I will find out the market insight or the sector. So I'll find out the market insight or the sector analysis for that sector for that country, right? So it talks about the overview, key trends, opportunities, challenges, the sector performance score, how much it costs, and the sector rationale, competitive landscape, a regulatory environment, and future outlook, right? Together with their citations. But let's say I want to really do a side-by-side comparison, a visual side-by-side. All I need to do is, let's say I want to pull, I want to check agriculture and compare side by side across the entire continent, which countries perform well in terms of the propensity. Okay, so in terms of the propensity or the attractiveness of that sector to investors. So this is the sector performance score for each country in a graph format. So if I'm looking at Ghana, it tells me the sector performance score for agriculture of Ghana is 78%, representing a solid opportunity. The same thing if I did that for Nigeria is the same. This is the only report that is showing the two countries performing the same. So in Ghana and Nigeria are on par when it comes to the agri sector in terms of performance score. But if you want to pull it all together, look at that. This is the country performance ranking for the agriculture sector, ranked by their sector's performance, its attractiveness to foreign investors. So as you can see, Mozambique tops the chart, and then it goes all the way down to the least, which is Central African Republic. And that, to me, is the key here. So in terms of being able to compare or benchmark countries within Africa in terms of performance, we now have a headway. Countries cannot shoot blind anymore. And this gives the opportunity for real benchmark, real comparison between different economies and different countries. I hope you enjoy this kind of content. If you like this kind of content, let me know so that I'll be doing a lot of breakdowns as well. The key part of this kind of platform or this content is my vision, the goal of my team is to unveil investment opportunities within Africa so that foreign investors can make data-driven decisions to be able to come here, because there's a lot on the table to help Africa to create the jobs, to open opportunities up, and to share in the kind of resources that we as a continent offer to the rest of the world. Because most of the time, our advantage is hidden because the data is not available, but no more because of AfricaInsights.ai. Now, so if you haven't downloaded the report, you can. This is for those who want to enter into Africa. One of the key challenges, as I said earlier, was Africa. There's a lot of cultural nuances in terms of doing business, and you need to understand the cultural nuances or the cultural insights of each country, or in this case, each region, to be able to successfully excel as a business or as an investment. So we put together a report called the African Advantage that you can download for free via QR code on the screen or a link in the description. Get access to this free report. It will help so that you don't make mistakes when you are entering Africa. On top of that, if you want to link up with us, for instance, you looked at this thing and you are fascinated by that, you can use there's a link in the description to schedule a call so that my team and your team, or for instance, you see a need to be able to scale this in your government agency or organization, we can talk. You can book a call. There's a link. You can schedule a call with my team. Have like 30 to 45 minute discovery call to talk about your needs and see how AfricaInsights.ai can benefit you. All right. Thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you again in our next video.